Hobbs doesn't yell at us like Ducey used to. He would snap once in a while. I mean, he was pretty cool, but once in a while he would just kind of lose it.
I'm Arizona Family political editor Dennis Welch.
Dennis, fake news Welch. Try to tell the truth.
And this is the Politics Unplugged podcast.
Dennis, if you have a problem with substance abuse, I am more than willing to talk to you anytime you need.
And welcome back to Politics Unplugged, the podcast edition. And Hank Stephenson with the agenda, the great reporter there, is here to break down all the details of Governor Hobbs' 2026, fiscal year 2026 budget. Hank, fresh off a 3-hour briefing, how was it?
I did not digest any of that. Don't ask me about any numbers. I'm going to have to sit with it for a while, but it was long is how it was. It was a long budget briefing, and
yeah, well,
got a lot. Got my fill of Howie and Bob and Bram and all of them asking the questions and just dragging it out, but it was good. It was good.
I expect to see that in the agenda headline tomorrow. Key takeaways from the budget. It was long.
Yes.
So that said, we did see a State of the State address earlier in the week. My take on this, it was probably one of the better speeches, if not the best speech I've seen Katie Hobbs give on some sort on this type of platform. I'm just wondering,
delivery or content?
Delivery.
Yeah,
delivery. It seemed like it was a lot more comfortable in this role than the prior two she'd given and whatnot.
2 years of yelling at Dennis Welch from the governor's office will do that to you. You know.
You get yelled at too.
Not like you do. I've never had a governor smack me. How about you?
Colin maybe has.
Once or twice.
It was the Oregon governor, so it doesn't really count.
Symington took a swing once.
I can see that. Seems like the type.
So, what your take? I saw you there afterwards. I don't know if you were inside the chamber watching the
from
speech.
The State of State?
Yeah. Saw you there afterwards. Didn't come over and say hi because you're
embarrassed to be seen with me.
We're all
shot
just
TV guy.
Yeah, we're just all super busy. What's the reaction from Republicans who I'm assuming probably not too bullish on that speech?
No, I don't think they loved it, but what stood out to me the day of was the lack of reactions from Republicans on that. I mean, in past years, there's been, a line in there that caused one or two of them to stand up and storm out or turn their back on the governor. And we didn't have any of that this year. And that's kind of why I asked about delivery or content, because I thought delivery, it was a strong speech, a really, strong performance from the governor. But content, it was meh. Right? It's well, okay, there's stuff in there, but I don't know if there was stuff to get excited about or even stuff to get mad about for the Republicans. It was a lot of a lot of the obligatory
the
claps.
Applause lines were almost felt like they were punching the clock on that. It was just out of obligation. It wasn't overwhelming or anything, but
except for I saw the House Minority Leader Oscar de los Santos. He was clapping hard. He really liked some parts of that.
He's earning his money.
He's a clapper,
He's a clapper.
You need your booster section in the crowd.
Is it fair though? I've covered a lot of these speeches. You've covered a lot of these speeches. Have you ever said to yourself, man, that was a great speech?
No, but at least man, that was an interesting speech, or man, there was some reaction to that speech, or something. But I think, we're working in a year where the governor is not going to be, uber liberal. We just had, Democrats took a national drubbing. I think that kind of puts a damper on a lot of the base feeding that she might have done otherwise. She's not going to, obviously give the Republicans a whole lot to be excited about under any circumstance. We don't have a ton of money to spend. We're not dealing with massive cuts. It's kind of a meh year, so far. I think that we're just kind of testing out the waters and getting in there and seeing what's possible. So
yeah, I mean, even this budget is not a huge increase in spending. You're coming off a year where they had to make cuts because of the deficit, and they've got a little extra money this year left over.
Yeah,
and so they're boosting spending by about $1 billion. And you're not seeing anything wild in there. You're not, in deficit years, the cuts always make the headlines. This year, I'm thinking that the major headlines going to out of this budget proposal, out of these speeches, is going to be lowering the cost of childcare.
That's one of the bigger
by
initiatives
2/3.
in this. And there are a couple of things like that where you're like, oh, okay, that's not nothing, but it's not I don't know, enough for people to turn their back on the governor, or enough to like really have a strong central thing that we are doing this year. It was kind of a lot of little initiatives that,
Yeah, and it showed once again that her and her staff can read an election result pretty clearly. I mean, she, the theme, the speech was Arizona Promise. We'll see how many promises she can keep from that speech. But
there weren't a lot of hard I was thinking about that. Like, how many promises were in that speech where she said Arizona Promise 59 times or whatever? I only counted like 2 or 3 actual promises. I was like trying to think of the things to hold her accountable for.
I see an agenda counter and like promises,
yes.
Promises made, promises delivered.
That's what I was trying to do, but there weren't that many made, honestly.
But I'm wondering, with the child care stuff, how, and really everything else, like what is she going to be able to get done? Where are the areas where she can find some compromise? I mean, I think you can start with Prop 123. That's something that's got some urgency to it. The education extension, I think that's got some urgency to it. They got to get something done to get that onto the ballot to extend Prop 123, which for those who aren't familiar with that, narrowly passed under the Ducey administration. Takes money from the state land trusts, puts it into education. That's set to expire in June unless voters extend that. But that seems like they could get something done on that.
Well, okay, there's a lot to unpack there, but let's just start with the Prop 123 stuff. The governor's budget, very notably, predicts a very strong likelihood that we will have to backfill these funds as a state. So you mentioned, Prop 123 puts about $300 million a year into schools, drawing down additional money from the state land trust. If that goes away, the governor's office is already setting aside $300 million to go into the budget, which, they say, well, if we get to keep it, if we can extend it in time, then we won't have to backfill it. We'll put this $300 million as new spending into education. But the very fact that they're pretty seriously contemplating the need to backfill, we think, Prop 123 is one of those things that must get done. Everyone agrees on this, but like,
so maybe not, right?
I've been just watching the signs here, and I'm growing increasingly skeptical that anything is going to happen just because of the timeline in which it needs to happen. Because if you put it to a ballot without a thoughtful campaign going along with it, there's a good chance that you lose that election.
That's a good point, because we don't even have a campaign yet at this point.
We don't even have a proposal yet at this point.
Let's say you throw that proposal out. Who's going to run that campaign? Because again, I mean, that narrowly passed.
And that was Ducey putting all of his weight into this. This was, Ducey's very first big initiative. They spent millions of dollars on that campaign. There was no real organized opposition campaign other than Jeff DeWitt and, some liberals who didn't like it. But like all the money, all the momentum was on the yes side of this thing. And it was 50.8%. It didn't even get to 51%, with the voters. So I think that throwing it up at this point might honestly be counterproductive, because we don't have a plan. We've had, 2 years, 10 years to talk about this, to figure out the plan. Last year, they started talking about it very quickly. Negotiations fell apart between, the Republicans at the Capitol, the Democratic governor, the state treasurer was getting in there with her own plan. I mean,
well, yeah, and the argument was over how the money should be spent. I believe Republicans want to spend all that money from Prop 123 and put it all into teacher salaries. And Democrats want it to be, spread out among staff and administration and whatnot. It's, Republicans, I think, trying to take back the narrative from Democrats that they support teachers and pay and stuff like that. But that was where, if I remember right, that was where the arguments were, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I think the governor's office also wanted to draw down more money, increase the draw from the state land trust. Republicans weren't too keen on that. But really, it's about how are we going to spend this? And, Republicans do not want this going to administrative bloat. Democrats have long said, like, look, the 20 by 2020 plan, those big teacher raises that Ducey gave out, those were restricted to only teachers. We raised their, salaries to some degree. But we've got wholly underfunded school systems. What good are teachers if you don't have bus drivers to get the kids to school, if you don't have, a cafeteria worker to feed them lunch? There's a lot of components that, have to be.
And teaching assistants to help the teachers with the oversized classrooms and all these other kinds of things. And that was a big point of contention. But yeah, you make a good point. I hadn't seen that part of the budget yet. I wasn't lucky enough to be at the 3-hour briefing today.
Nobody's seen that part of the budget. Yeah, there was just like a line in there like, oh, we're going to keep this money aside in case something happens. And we, tried to ask some questions about it. And I did not get the sense they have a good idea of what's happening. Negotiations are ongoing. It's like, well, since when? Where stage are they at? Where are the plans? The governor hasn't put anything out in a year.
Who's going to run the campaign, which is essential if you're going to do that.
And I mean, look at the timeline. We're talking about a May election. That means, you really have to have that done by March at some point to give, we've got to set up a statewide election. That's 50 counties making ballots, putting these questions on the ballots. It takes time. So you can't just like flip a switch in May and say, okay, election. So, if I'm a betting man, I don't think we go to a May ballot at this point. It may be a fall thing. It may be a kick it down the road for a little while. The state will pick up the tab in the meantime. I think eventually we do something with Prop 123. We, find a formula people can agree on, a payout schedule that people can agree on, and, get something back to the voters. But I don't feel like May is a very likely option at this point.
Or Prop 123 goes into the Arizona dustbin of history. Goes away.
Yeah.
I mean, because there was a lot of concern about using that mechanism. Remember, it was always my favorite when everybody was talking about the corpus.
The corpus. I had never heard the word corpus before this debate. I am
uncomfortable with that term. It's like it's gonna eat into the corpus, like of the state land. That sounds wicked, man. So
eat into the corpus. That could be your next metal band.
My next metal band? Yeah. I never had a metal band.
Well, but your future.
I think your metal band should be Eating to the Corpus.
We should start a metal band called Eating into the Corpus.
My first album. It's called 1, 2, 3.
Nice.
She also spent a lot of time talking about, reining in ESAs again. This is a die on the hill issue for Republicans. And when I say die on the hill, they will die on the hill with this. They don't want to limit this program at all. I mean, she's doing her duty to go out there, as she sees it, to go out there and raise awareness of misspending of these funds. Mm-hmm. And again, if you're not familiar, ESAs is the school voucher program. Allows you to use taxpayer money to send your kids to private schools of your choice. Hobbs has been raising awareness of what they say is misallocation of funds.
Legos, skiing trips,
pianos, grand pianos.
Yes, grand pianos. Yeah, not just any piano.
It's a grand piano. I don't know. Grand piano could be an educational tool, I suppose.
Well,
for learning to play piano.
My classes when I was a child, I believe, had Legos. That is kind of a component of learning. But
yes. a grand piano. If you're going to learn to play piano, I don't know. A Casio's a good place to start. You don't have to go with the Steinway or whatever the hell.
I never had skiing trips at my schools either.
Wait, you never did?
No.
Oh,
did you?
Wow, weird.
You used to go up to Snow Bowl regularly?
All the time.
Did you go to school here in Arizona?
Chandler High, baby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we went to twice a week. Twice a week during the ski season. We were up there snowboarding or skiing.
Nice.
I'm making that up. That's a lie. But she continues to do this, and again, that's my read on this. You see any hope for optimism for Democrats to get any more guardrails in place on this?
No, not really. But
yeah.
I would note 2 years ago it was eliminate universal vouchers.
Yeah.
And now it's been, put some means testing, some, caps on who can get these. And it's kind of a tiered approach that if you make, up to 100,000 as family, you get your full voucher. If you make 200, you get nothing in between there. It's a sliding scale thing. So, that's far more likely to happen than a repeal. But we're talking like 0% to 5% or something. So a repeal is just not politically possible. I don't think these kinds of, I don't think
you can't take
these
entitlements away from people after they've been. This is the Obamacare of Arizona in education. It's been out there for a while. And can you imagine repealing this? The stories that would be out there?
Oh, it would be outrage. Yeah. I mean, and, the governor's office has been just hammering how many of these kids were either homeschooled before or were already private school kids. I mean, the vast majority, it seems, of our voucher recipients are not leaving public school to go to private school. They were already in private school, and they're just getting a voucher for it now, which, debatable whether that's good public policy, but once it's in place, it's forever. It's forever.
It's forever. And you can say it's debatable. It's definitely debatable, and they've been having that debate, but it's just not going to happen. So, she also mentioned housing. We saw some more details outlined in the budget on that. What can you tell us about that? She wants to double a program that helps with down payments and mortgages, down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. What else are you seeing that she wants to do with housing from the budget?
Some low-income tax credit stuff, low-income housing tax credit stuff, some more deposits into the state housing fund. But I think the bigger changes to housing in Arizona will be policy related. There's a lot of proposals going around at the legislature. Even I think in the governor's state of the state, she was talking about reining in short-term rentals from these out-of-state owners. Places like Sedona are basically just one giant short-term rental community at this point, and the workers who actually used to live in that community are now sleeping in their cars outside of those communities. It is wreaking havoc on certain areas of Arizona, and I've never seen a great economic study on this, but it is really hard to imagine that when a huge chunk of our housing supply, especially in certain areas, is taken up by short-term rentals, that is not a significant factor in this problem that we've got going on of having a housing shortage. Because, in Sedona, I think it's something like 25% of the houses allegedly are just short-term rentals, which is insane. A quarter of that community is just Airbnbs.
Well, I mean, it led to
why they can't have people live there.
Led to one of the governor's better lines that Arizonans want family homes, not party houses.
Oh, yeah.
I think I saw you applauding that line.
Yeah,
actually.
I was like, wait, no party houses? No, I'm sorry, I was confused. I thought we were going to a party house.
Yeah, we want party houses, damn it.
I really want to. I know some of these lawmakers have short-term rentals or have in the past. And if you ever are combing Airbnb and happen to find a lawmaker who is a super host, please DM me. I would like to expense a stay at their Airbnb and then write about it. That could be a lot of fun. Especially
you wanted to do that with a certain lawmaker.
I was telling you about this.
You were telling me about this. It was just hilarious. You call up the lawmaker and ask them for an interview and have a meeting over where you're staying. You interview them in their Airbnb.
I'm just sitting on their bathroom or something. Yeah, that could be. We could do weird stuff with that one.
That'd be a whole lot of fun. Now, Republicans, from what I hear, Steve Montenegro, the new Speaker of the House, a whole story on his own right there by there. Talk about.
You want to tell it?
No, we don't have time to go down that tangent. But he was pretty clear right after that speech that Republicans are going to protect people's property rights, which tells me there's not much of an appetite the Republican-controlled legislature to step in and start regulating these short-term rentals.
Yeah, I could, we have, so when we first approved our short-term rental law, we went way too far. And it took a year or two to kind of get the Republican majority to recognize that. And then they started, pulling it back a little bit, allowing cities to do some regulation of their short-term rentals. And So I can see, little movements on that. I don't know what the governor is proposing when she says, all these out-of-state investors. I don't know if it's a blanket ban on out-of-state investors owning short-term rentals here. Something that strong obviously is never going to fly, but there may be little micro steps that we could be taking that would be bipartisan and get us closer to, some sort of a regulation on this market.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing, again, folding into her overall, the big theme of this was lowering costs for Arizonans. Childcare, what's that look like? It's a public-private partnership.
It was a confusing little proposal that they threw at us. There was a couple components to this thing, and we had to come back to it several times, and I think they promised to send us a handout after the whole thing was done because nobody was quite clear what this plan was.
It's like, companies put in money a third, government puts in a third, and the parents put in a third.
That's one of the ideas. I think there are a couple of pots of money that they're talking about. One is essentially trying to get a public-private partnership where each party picks up a third. They say, the average cost is $1,200. The company in this case would kick in $400. The government would kick in $400. The parent would end up paying $400 instead of $1,200, which is, a huge difference. We've got a lot of people who it simply does not make sense for them to work when they have children, and that's horrible for our economy. So I think that there's certain things that they're looking at. That public-private partnership is one. There was also a pot of money, maybe $1 million, to kind of start a pilot program with some different companies. I can't even remember how that thing works, but essentially subsidizing them for providing child care to their employees. So yeah, I mean, the governor is a former social worker. This is important to her. This has economic impact far beyond, what we see in this, $400 or whatever that the state could be kicking into this. There are ways to do it smart. This has been a long-term problem, not only in the state, but in the nation. I think it's a smart area for her to carve out a niche on. And I think there are Republicans who will go along with some who agree this is a problem. Whether or not they accept the governor's solutions, that's to be negotiated. But I think that this is one of those areas where we could see actual movement this year.
Yeah, and you'd think that, businesses would be champing at the bit, to give something back, considering all the corporate tax breaks that this legislature has given them over the years, right?
It's trickling. It's about to start trickling. That was a question for the governor's office when we were in there, is how much of the corporate tax cuts of the Deuce area cost Arizona, and they said $2 to $3 billion, which is a huge range to not know. And I mean, that's our state.
This isn't California's budget with like $200 billion. This is a $17 billion budget.
Yes, exactly.
And $2 or $3 billion is a sizable percent of that overall budget.
And I think that you could argue that's a static analysis, and that's what it's cost the state. But what benefit have these tax cuts brought to the state? And that's a whole nother side of the equation that they're not measuring because they don't want to.
Boy.
I don't think that anyone would argue that the tax benefit to the state has been $2 to $3 billion. So it is a net negative so far. We're still waiting for those dimes to trickle. Has anything trickled down to you, Dennis? Are you getting
a lot of things have trickled down to me.
Yeah.
It flows. It flows downhill. It flows downhill. Right?
Is that money we're talking about?
Oh yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And let's kind of wrap up on this. I know you've had a long day. I've had a long day. We're getting a little
bored of me, Dennis.
No, I'm not, man. I'll sit here. I'll keep you here forever, man. You mentioned something. You noticed something during the budget briefing that you found was like really interesting, and there was a plummeting of the sales tax.
Oh yeah,
but I'm not supposed to use the word plummet.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's decreasing rapidly.
Okay, but not plummeting.
I wouldn't say plummet. I think I said collapse, and they're like, collapse? It's not collapsing. I'm like, well, yeah, it looks. I mean, their projections on sales and use taxes are basically over the next 4 years they will half, and that is a huge portion of the state revenue.
50%.
Yeah, drop by 50%.
But that's not plummeting or collapsing.
No, that's
decreasing rapidly.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's scary, and I was very interested by that. And they said, oh yeah, brick and mortars are dying, and I'm like, well, at what rate? Like, we to put sales taxes on all sorts of stuff. I mean, online digital goods. So if these projections are accurate, that's a big, big problem in the future. And then there were other tax revenue pieces that were also plummeting on that spreadsheet, like vehicle fuel tax, which you can guess why that might be, vehicle licensing taxes, like a lot of things that are, not the world is changing rapidly.
It is, and you see some early reflections on stuff like that. And I mean, the retail stores. You can see the physical evidence of that. You just go to any mall, or what most of them probably have a lot of empty storefronts. Where 20 years ago that just wasn't the case. And Arizona's always balanced a lot of its budgets on sales tax because it doesn't want to raise income tax. It doesn't want to raise property taxes, which are much more fiscally prudent, if you would, because they're much more stable because the retail tax goes with the economy up and down. But that's been the better policy for them because you're still paying tax. You just don't see it on a bill. So when you start seeing a plummeting of the retail tax on there, that hits the state pretty hard.
Yeah, we're going to, over the next 10 years or so, we are going to, I did a quick search in the budget book for the words artificial intelligence too, just to see if there was anything in there. And it was like one line about could be a major disruptor to our job market and economy. And I think that was a bit of an understatement in some ways, but online sales didn't really exist in the way that we know them a decade ago. A decade from now, what will that look like, compared to brick and mortar vehicles? Our entire road funds are based on the idea that cars use gas. That won't be the case in 10 years. Imagine what it was 10 years ago to now. There are a lot of things like that where we're going to have to give some serious thought to how we accumulate revenues in the state. You can't tax things that don't exist. This is a living, breathing document, the tax code, that needs to be updated to our reality every couple of years. And I think that we have been, how long have we been talking about the vehicle tax? We haven't had an increase in the vehicle tax in 20, 30 years. And, simply increasing the fuel tax at this point is not going to solve the problem, because the problem is that we've got these cyber trucks driving on our road that do not
new technologies, these disruptive technologies.
Yes. And those are heavy ass cars, they put wear and tear on our roads. And the whole way that we paid for upgrade to roads was from gas. And we don't have gas in those, and we don't allow, the state to monitor, or anyone to monitor mileage. We don't even have a mechanism to tax them at this point to make up for that. And we've been talking about it for a decade, and nobody's come up with a solution that everyone can buy in on. Nobody's willing to make that change. And I think that there's a lot of things like that in our books that we need some longer term, smarter, bigger thinkers in charge of our state if we're going to meet the challenges of the next 15, 20 years. And, sorry, everyone running this state. I didn't mean to be so down on you right there, but Jesus.
Some innovative thinkers. So you're saying the same people are introducing bills like the chemtrail bill.
Yeah, burning books,
Burning books. Did you see the Inflation Reduction Act of 2025?
No. What's the Inflation Reduction Act of 2025? How's that work?
That you can bring your own booze to the golf course.
That's
the inflation. I'm not making this up.
I don't go to golf courses. I feel like if you're spending your time on the golf course, the inflation isn't really what's killing you.
Let's do some good podcasting right here.
Okay,
let me look this up real quick.
Oh, can we talk about the mystery of who started playing Megan Thee Stallion during the budget briefing? As long as you're just scrolling, I thought maybe that's what you were pulling up.
Yeah. Play us off, Hank. House Bill 2411. The inflation, it said it can be referred to as the Inflation Reduction Act of 2025 . And what happened was,
I have not read this one. Should we you want to make me guess at whose it is?
Can we maybe next time we should do dramatic readings of bills.
Oh, that sounds fun. We can make a whole podcast out of that.
Next time you come here.
Nobody's going to listen to that, but I'm not sure anyone's listening anyway.
Dramatic readings of bills. And at the end here it says, The act may be cited as the Inflation Reduction Act of 2025.
But the whole thing is just BYOB to golf courses?
Yeah, so what
Cool.
happened was apparently
Does that work for podcasts?
Maybe. I don't think there's any law that prohibits, if you want to bring your own hooch up here, man, like, go for it. But like, and it says in the bill that there was four lawmakers went to a golf course and were upset that they couldn't bring their own beer and stuff there. It's laid out in the bill.
Wait, okay, well, I'm going to have to pull this one up because that sounds like a lot of fun. Is it the 4 co-sponsors?
There's 3 co-sponsors that I can
Who's
see
the missing 4th? That's what I want to know. What golf course was this and what time of day? Let's ask the hard questions here. Was this a 10 a.m. golf tee-off time?
Was this at a fundraiser?
Yeah. Which
on?
lobbyist was paying for your booze since you couldn't bring it yourself? Because I know you didn't pay for it.
Well, and that's what they're arguing, that like it's cheaper to go buy your booze at the 7-Eleven or the Circle K and bring it with you than buying it at the golf course.
Well, yeah, I can go to Circle K and bring my beer into a bar too, and it would be cheaper. But that's not what the business exists for.
Yeah, well,
It's just like a house party.
So
where
there's 3 sponsors.
There's a cake and you can bring your own.
3 sponsors, all Republican.
Who are they?
In the House. You said you were going to guess.
Oh God, in the House. Man, I don't know. We can make this podcast very awkward by me guessing.
Yeah.
So you can just tell us.
That's what I was hoping. We like awkward here at Politics. Call it in Biasucci, Wilmoth.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the inflation. They're doing their part to lower costs for everyday Arizonans who golf.
The Golf Caucus.
The Golf Caucus. You got the governor talking about lowering housing prices and child care costs, and they're like, what else we could do?
I ain't paying $9 for a Coors Light on the golf course.
That is expensive. I wouldn't pay $9 for a fucking Coors Light either. I mean, I wouldn't pay 9 cents for a Coors Light. Oof.
Free Coors Lights.
But that's another discussion for a different pod, or maybe for Colin and I to discuss on the back half of the show. I don't know.
Good.
I don't know Colin's feeling toward the Silver Bullet beer.
I don't have a strong view on Coors Light.
That's rare. I feel like most people have a gut reaction to Coors Light.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's pretty gut like that, and like Michelob Ultra.
Oh, yeah, that's gross. Natty Ice for me. If I'm drinking, it's Mickey's 40s.
The Mickey's Big Mouth. All right. Last question here before I let you go. Is there any leverage the governor has at this point to use to get any of her platform, any of her programs done at this point? Because they, again, Democrats lost seats in the elections. Mm-hmm. Republicans just don't seem very interested in giving her any wins heading into an election year.
Yeah, I can't, the leverage is like we don't pass a budget. The leverage is the veto. I don't think there's like proactive leverage that she's really got other than, do you want me to sign or veto this unrelated bill? Do you want the state to shut down as of July 1st?
And if she does that, does she get seen as the blame for a government shutdown? Or do Republicans get seen as the government shutdown? Or will everyday Arizonans even notice that the government shut down?
Everyday Arizonans.
Everyday Arizonans.
I feel like usually the blame falls to the legislative body when there's not a, budget in place. But also if they send her something, the last time that they sent her something, it was like a skinny budget where it was a joke of, they were like, veto this. It was veto bait. Mm. But if they're putting up serious proposals and the governor is just, stonewalling them, sure, maybe that shifts to the governor. I don't know if everyday Arizonans know or care if their government is operating at this point. But yeah, there's not a whole lot that the governor has there in her back pocket. I mean, she doesn't even, we're still talking about the fight on agency directors. And it's like, if she gets any through, it'll be because of the goodwill of Republicans. They can, and I expect will continue to just swat these people down. And there's not much the governor can do other than veto. There may be some other executive action. She's made some threats on water or things like that, kind of specific areas where the governor does have some authority to unilaterally act. But yeah, as far as leverage,
I don't see
get
it.
yourself a darn good lobbyist. Get to work,
Go create your own leverage somehow at some point. And I don't know how I don't know where you even begin with that. That's why I host podcasts.
Who's got dirt on Warren Peterson?
Give me the dirt. Give me the dirt. Stat.
This is going all Nixon on him.
All right, man. I think we'll just end it there.
That sounds good.
By the way, what was the music you were listening to in the car on the way over after a 3-hour budget briefing?
The music I was listening.
What were you listening to in your car? I'm always interested in.
My phone is ringing. I can't even tell you what's on my Spotify right now. It's a speakerphone coming up. I don't know. Now I'm curious because I can't remember what I was listening to.
What does a pro reporter such as yourself listen to after a 3-hour budget briefing? I want to know.
Mostly classical music.
Okay.
A little bit of
a little Chopin, a little Schumer.
Mm-hmm. Maybe some. I don't know. I don't even know if I was listening to music on the drive over here.
Oh wow.
Okay, here we go.
Love it.
People stop calling me. You are we really going to spend your viewers' time on this?
Yeah, there's no. It's a podcast.
There are no viewers.
There are no viewers here.
Oh, Diego's Umbrella. You ever?
I'm not familiar with that.
Kind of a San Francisco-based rock, gypsy, indie, punky, something unique flamenco vibe going on there.
Oh, some world beat action.
Yeah, a little world beaty. I don't know. It's a playlist. Who knows what?
A lot more global than I took you for. All right, I like it. I dig that.
Sorry, I should have pulled up a hipster local band. That would have been much better on my.
No, it wouldn't have been much better. That's great. Hey man, we'll end it there. Thanks for stopping by, man. Next time. We survived first week of the legislative session, the opening day and the budget. I feel like, Dennis, we're on a roll now. I know. I think there's a six-pack in my future here. Sixer. Yeah. Nice. Maybe in your future too. Cool. Yeah. Let's get drinks sometime soon. All right. Can we bring Colin and the cameras along? Yeah, Colin, you're invited too. Thank you. Cool. Do you have any suggestions, Colin? I hear Coors Light's big. Nice. Nailed it. With that, we'll end it right there with the silver bullet. All right. That was a productive one there. And welcome back to the back half of Politics Unplugged with producer extraordinaire, Colin Stanton. Colin. Yeah. Great to see you as always, man. Thanks. Good to be here. Good to be here. Always good to be the back half. Yeah, man. I was glad you were chiming in a little bit more on the discussion with Hank and I. Yeah. Hank's always a great guest, and I do feel for him and the other reporters who had to sit through a very long, arduous budget 3-hour budget briefing. 3-hour tour. Yeah. I think people at home can imagine what a 3-hour budget briefing would be like. Oof. Yeah. I don't recommend it. No, I've been in like hour and a half briefings where I was like, climbing the walls to want to get the hell out of there. The budget briefing should not be as long as Titanic. At least you got the boat going down. And it shouldn't be as long as sticking with Gilligan's Island, as long as the tour of the USS Minnow should have been. You know, that's a long time to be talking budget stuff. And it's interesting because I'm glad you would take that much time, but at the end of the day, reporters report just the top lines, and you're not going to get into a lot of that stuff. So be that as it may, thoughts on we've lived through and produced a lot of the State of the State speeches. You heard the conversation with Hank and I over some of the top lines in the budget. What's your thoughts, man? I mean, all of this boils down to, do the Republicans feel like giving anything to Hobbs? Yeah, no. Because she doesn't have any leverage. I mean, virtually none. Yeah. She can use a veto as leverage and maybe get a few small things here and there. But like the child care thing's great. The price of child care is crazy. They should work to try and bring it down. They should work to make it affordable. Mm-hmm. But it's up to the Republicans because Hobbs can't do anything. She doesn't, all she has is the veto. Yeah, and I agree with Hank, too, because you start looking at it, you're thinking about these things before the session, and like, oh, well, maybe there's some areas here, there. man, it's looking really. She is fully dependent upon whatever the Republicans want to give her. And
Yeah.
when you say talking about areas where they can agree on and find some common ground, I'm thinking pay raises, maybe for first responder types.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get both sides in on that.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of how much you want to give them.
Yeah.
And after that, boy,
Yeah, if Republicans don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. They're not, they've shown they're not going to give her anything. They're not really there in the spirit of compromise.
no, and you at this point you have to like create some sort of leverage out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if shutting the government down in July is the tack she wants to be prepared to take, because
That's
that can go a number of different ways. And man, voters may blame you for the shutdown depending on how things go, and you don't want to be blamed for a shutdown, which off the top of my head, I don't remember ever happening during my time covering the Capitol.
I don't remember it either.
And I don't remember it happening in the state. I'd have to look back on that. But, is that a tactic you're prepared to use?
I mean, if you're going to draw a line in the sand like that, you better have a very clear-cut, understandable reason for doing it that's a pretty popular reason.
Yeah. And you got to be pretty sure that you're not going to take the blame for it.
Right. Right. Which is why it has to be a popular reason, and the other side's going to look bad. Because if it's going to, if people don't understand why it's shutting down and don't understand why you're taking that spot as the governor, you're probably in a world of hurt.
Yeah, and I don't see many reasons at this point that voters would buy. They're like, okay, we understand why you're shutting the government down. We're going to give you a pass on this, and we're going to blame them for doing this. I don't know. That's a rock and a hard place, and heading into an election year. And she thinks it's tough this year. Next year is going to be even brutaler.
Yeah.
If that's
figures to be, yes.
Is that a word, brutaler?
Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But, flexible.
So what else you want to talk about? I'm over dumping on the Suns. I think you are too.
Yeah, we've kind of done our share of that.
I just at this point, real quick watched the game the other night, and I was just like, I just can't deal. I can't deal with this, and I don't want to talk about them anymore.
Yeah, the bottom line is they seem to be at a spot where this isn't working, and they're the only way to move off of this onto something else is to make some pretty dramatic changes to the team, and I don't think anyone has the stomach for that. So I think this is probably what we got for a few years.
Yeah, man, and I'll go ahead and go on record and making an unpopular statement, man. Yeah, I think they should trade Durant, and they should trade Devin Booker.
Yeah.
I don't think Devin Booker's the kind of guy you want. If you're going to have to go into a rebuild, I don't think he's the kind of guy you want to build around. If you can't get winning teams out of Devin Booker by surrounding him with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, who the hell are you going to win with him?
Yeah. And the bottom line is they cannot remake the team without trading either Durant or Booker.
And I'd say trade him now when you have a lot of value. I think Booker would have probably more value than Durant left just because of age.
Because of age. Right.
And I would trade them and get assets, because right now the Suns have zero assets now. I mean, we're talking about they don't have any even second round draft picks.
They've
anymore.
traded most of those in the deal this week. They've got a first rounder in 2031.
Yeah.
Not great.
No, and look, I love that we have an owner in town who's willing to spend. Love it, and it's hard to criticize him for that, but I think he has spent himself. He was just big-eyed. He wanted to He desperately wanted to win a championship quickly. And he wanted to do something good for the community. I think it was all well-intentioned. It's just now he's finding out the finances of the NBA can be tough.
Yeah, they've shifted. I mean, everyone knew that you're sort of putting yourself in a corner. The finances have shifted to a point where I don't think people at the time understood where they were going to be down the line, because now with the way the CBA is built, the Suns are completely backed into a corner. And I credit Ishbia for being aggressive and putting the team together. And the individual deals I understood. I thought, go for it. And we went for it, and we assembled what we thought was a super team and put together the best team possible. And it's not working.
No.
And the problem is the way it's assembled, you can't fix it.
No.
They don't have the money to fix it the way finances in the NBA work. You're not allowed to fix it.
No.
Short of trading Durant and Booker. And I don't think there's a stomach for that.
I think they should. Can we put you on record? Booker, trade him or not?
I don't think you can trade Booker. I think the fan revolt would be enormous. I love Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's one of my favorite players. I could be talked into a Durant trade simply because this team doesn't figure to get any better in the coming years. They've got Beal under contract for another 2 full years after this. They're locked in to the lineup they have now. And the lineup they have now, which is as young as it's ever going to be at the moment, isn't even in a play-in position. So I could be talked into trade Durant to Houston and get the picks that they sent out to Brooklyn to get Kevin Durant are now in Houston. Brooklyn sent him to Houston. Send Durant to Houston in a trade where you get like those picks back and some other spots, some other pieces. I could be talked into that. I hate it. I love Durant. But if you want to have a future in this team other than just watching it decay, that might be the way to go.
I mean, wasn't there a really popular player, the Suns, in the 80s, late 80s? They traded to get Kevin Johnson, those folks, and everybody for from Cleveland that everybody was outraged about.
Was it Hornacek?
No, it wasn't Hornacek. It was the era before that.
Okay.
Then they was a really popular player that they traded, and there was a fan revolt. And I think you're at that point because you need pieces, you need drafts, you need some talent, and
I don't know that the average fan understands the finances and why they're as hamstrung as they are.
Yeah.
I keep seeing headlines of people speculating on the Bradley Beal, Jimmy Butler trade.
Not going to happen.
It's not happening. You cannot. It's almost entirely impossible to trade Bradley Beal for a variety of reasons.
You'd have to have a third team get involved with basically who's almost motivated to help Ishbia and the Suns out.
Yes, wants to take on a huge amount of salary and send out parts to the Heat if you're talking a Butler trade. And then on top of that, it has to be a place that Brad Beal wants to go to because he has a no trade and has no reason whatsoever to waive it if he doesn't want to. And Bradley Beal's not going to waive his no trade contract to go be a Piston. This is not going to happen. Maybe Miami, I don't know. And even at that, Jimmy Butler's old and a pain in the ass and can never get along anywhere and is always unhappy about his money situation and still is a year out from the end of his contract. So he'll be a pain in the ass wherever he goes. So, you can trade Brad Beal with a not great contract, who seems to be a great guy, great attitude. He's coming off the bench very well. You can try and do all you can to trade him for an older malcontent. I mean, rah-rah.
An older ne'er-do-well.
Yeah. So that was we're not going to talk about the Suns segment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, now that we're done not talking about the Suns.
Yeah.
We did want to spend a little bit of time talking about the state of social media because it seems relevant. I mean, TikTok ban, TikTok not ban,
This drops on Sunday, at which point TikTok is probably going to be banned, it appears.
Yeah.
Happy? Sad? Do you care?
I'm not on TikTok. I never downloaded that app. I never got into it. I don't know. I mean, if this would have happened to Twitter in its heyday, I know I would have been, disappointed and upset about this.
Yes. That would not be my reaction to Twitter shutting down.
No.
Now.
Let's put a pin on that point for a minute.
Yeah.
Put a pin on that because there's lots of things to say about Twitter.
Yeah.
And Meta. And I mean,
I have a TikTok account that I don't even know what the account name or password is. I set something up just to look at stuff. And have come around to the idea that it's absolutely not doing me any good other than just losing hours of my life.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're also like a couple middle-aged white dudes.
We're not necessarily the full-on target audience of TikTok.
Yeah, so we're definitely not. But I do think it does lead us into that broader discussion about social media.
Yeah.
And the state of that. We both, moved over to Blue Sky and don't really use Twitter at all anymore.
I haven't looked at Twitter in days. I deleted it off my phone. I still have an account there simply because that keeps my followers, or not my followers, the people I'm following. I've got followers that that were there for a long time because I haven't posted anything on Twitter in years.
Yeah, no, and I keep the Twitter account to keep track of people who are on Twitter.
Yeah.
That I need to report on or follow because, a lot of the communication in politics now is done through social media. As much as I dislike that, but that's just the reality of the situation. I just found Twitter, whatever, you want to call it. It's X, but I just find that to be a near complete waste of time.
It is. It's an absolute shithole. There's so little there of value, and God help you if you ever look at the responses to anything. They're all just trash from blue check bots and tech bro ass kissers, and it's horrifying.
Yeah,
and it's constantly pushing ads at me for some guy in a tweet code explaining why DEI is the source of all evil. And
I mean, what's productive about it when it's just people dunking on you?
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I'm a reporter. I get that the media, people criticize us a lot. We should be criticized. We should always be criticized. That's goddamn fair. But for people to do it, it's bots. Or anonymous trolls.
Yes, it's bots and blue checks that are, Kyle 548 and 21 going, you suck.
Yeah, you're not going to have an honest conversation.
No.
Again, there's been plenty of jokes made, and this point has been made over and over, is that, you've never seen anybody on social media go, yeah, you know what? You're fucking right.
Yeah, I changed my mind.
I changed my mind.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Thank you, thank you, Ryan 1268910.
Yeah.
For enlightening me on this.
Yeah.
In real life, I've had real conversations with real people in real rooms, face to face, that I've walked out with a different opinion.
Yeah.
Because you get new information, your opinion evolves, and you can change your mind. You can't do that on social media.
No.
And in fact, bad behavior is rewarded.
Yeah.
On social media. I think that, before we started this section of the show, I was talking to you a little bit about the COVID years, or the COVID time when we were doing those press conferences with Doug Ducey. And we'd go out there, and it'd be an hour of, he'd spend the first 15, 20 minutes rolling out some, things that are happening, masks, no masks, business, no business, these kinds of things. And then it'd be an hour of this tense back and forth with, him yelling at us, us giving it back to him, blah, blah, or whoever. I don't want to say he started it. It was that's just the way it was. And, you could see on social media that the nastier the argument got, the more you engage with him in a negative way, the more positive results you got on social media.
Yeah.
That's social media. It rewards that kind of behavior. And I believe you brought up a sports analyst who was really an extremely brilliant guy. And he was talking about social media and made a good point about that, if you want to share that with the audience.
The Bomani Jones?
Yes.
What was he saying?
He was talking the problem isn't social media.
Oh, yeah. He was talking about how so many of his colleagues were shifting over to Blue Sky, and were talking to him about shifting over, because he's still on Twitter, shifting to Blue Sky. And his point was, the problem's not the platform. It might be a more pleasant place, but the problem is social media. You're wasting your time with this.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things he likes to say is, if you're there and you're posting, you're there for one of two reasons. You're there to inform, or you're there to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And try and figure out which one it is, and if there's a whole lot of value in that.
Yeah.
And, I think Blue Sky is an infinitely better platform than Twitter now.
Yeah.
But I also think it's right that social media is just generally a huge negative now. And, I look at the stuff I get fed on, whether it's Facebook or the stuff on Instagram that, the stuff I'm not following, the stuff it decides to feed to me. And if I'm looking at TikTok, and the TikTok algorithm's better than the others. But just look at how much of the stuff they force at you is designed to make you angry.
Yeah.
The videos, the reels we think you'll like. It's, look at the way this asshole's driving. Hey, look at this Karen yelling at a black kid.
Yeah.
Hey, look at this person who tries to shoplift and then gets punched in the face and not cold.
Yeah.
And like, what? This isn't making my life any better.
No. It's not. It's not. And then the other side is, like, we're in jobs are, we better be informing. That should be our top priority when we go on social media and post and engage in that. Hopefully we can do it in a more entertaining way that's not biased or anything like that. That's always the goal,
Yeah.
But like, you can be the most straightforward on X particular, and you will still get dunked on.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no point in
politician.
posting on X.
You can go out and tweet or post on social media. What I think politician X is expected to make an appearance here on Tuesday.
Yeah,
and you'll get, and depending on if you get a lot of followers, like for me, you would get a bunch of immediate responses like, "You're a hack, you're a poser, you suck."
Yeah, all with the blue check.
Yeah, and like, well, what's the point of me doing any of this? And there's been plenty of studies, that show that it doesn't drive traffic to our websites or to our broadcasts on TV.
Yeah,
what it does is it just draws attention to you on these platforms. And the thing that sucks about it is like it's a high risk little reward.
Yeah,
you get your ass canned.
Yeah.
If you say something wrong on social media.
Yes. But there's virtually no benefit to it.
There's no benefit. You're not going to get a raise because, hey, I got 60,000 followers.
Yeah.
600,000 followers. You're not getting a raise.
There was actually a long period of time at Channel 5 when I was the guy with the most followers on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was funny because I hardly posted anything. And like, I was a show producer at that point. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I had more followers than any of the on-air talent. Like any annual review got, I put that up there prominently, and just thought it was hilarious because like it shows no one else is making any effort.
And on Blue Sky and Twitter, I find those audiences a lot more informed or in on the know on what's going on.
Yes.
And how am I influencing whatever if I'm putting that information out? Now I'm happy to put information out if I'm able to do a bigger piece on something that exposes corruption or something that's not working well or something that's really important. I'm happy to do that, and I'm thinking like, okay, I'm contributing something to this, and you guys can all discuss this story or whatever. But there's not a lot of those opportunities.
No. And back to your point, people aren't on Twitter. As much importance as we tend to give it, we've seen the studies. We've had consultants come in and break down where you get viewers, and the essential point was, if you're on Twitter, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
The average person is not on there. They don't understand it. They don't care about what's going on there. To their credit. Facebook was a much bigger driver, but I don't. That was a while ago. I think Facebook is probably losing a lot of that. I think TikTok's a legit driver to stuff.
Yeah, and Facebook, remember, kids, it's not new. It's like 20 years old.
Yes, and taking a hard turn in its tactics.
Yeah, no, and I've seen that, and I think because of that, we saw another kind of wave of people migrating over to Blue Sky.
Yes.
And you can tell this because all of a sudden you're picking up followers. Like, what the hell? What's going on? A lot of followers. And like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, it ain't you. It's that Zuckerberg decided to genuflect to MAGA.
Yeah, and it just, I remember years ago, like MySpace was kind of fun because basically you and your friends, like, well, hey, you want to go hang out? We're doing this. You post some pictures. Initial Facebook was kind of fun for a weekend, I suppose. It was fun, but it's just been trashy.
The thing that's amazing to me about Facebook is just like it's legit gotten worse and worse and worse, and not just in ways that are designed to feed you something, or just like the algorithm is so bad. If I look at my feed, I don't do it that often. And again, I haven't posted on Facebook in years. The only reason I still have an account is because there are people, I knew 30, 40 years ago, where that's the only contact I have with them at all. So I'll keep the account up, but I don't use it. But if I look at my feed, it'll be, a post from someone I know who posts all the time, and then it'll be 4 ads, and then it'll be a post from like a country store in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, or it'll be these posts from people or businesses that have nothing to do with me. Yeah. They're just random stuff from people I don't know across the country, or businesses I don't use that are across the country. And I think, what the hell is in the meta algorithm that's pushing this stuff at me?
Yeah, I don't pretend to understand that. I know a lot of the stuff in my Facebook feeds and a lot of stuff in my Twitter feeds. It is getting pushed at me as I don't care about this.
Yeah.
There's been some talk about, I don't know where this is at, like Elon Musk might buy TikTok.
Part of me thinks it would be absolutely fascinating to see how many people bail on TikTok if that happens, and if their numbers go down. I think they would, just as a sign that people are more comfortable with China than they are with Elon Musk.
Yeah, and for me, I have a little bit of a different take on that. And it's not so much, and I know Elon is very politically polarizing and all that, but replace Elon with anybody and say that one person would own something like X and TikTok. Now, we just bashed on X, but it's still an its influence is outsized compared to its users. It drives a lot of narratives and stuff like that. I mean, to me, that would be an area of concern. This is a major media right now, just like newspapers were in the early 20th century.
Yes.
This is a major form of media where people get their information. And if one person is in charge of these kinds and own these two platforms, that would be an area of concern for me, no matter who that is.
No matter who it is, to have all of that under the control of one person is very, very concerning. Mm-hmm. When that one person is the one person we're talking about, too. Well, it's exponentially worse, but it's just the general idea of one person having that power is a giant problem.
And you can go back, if you're interested and you're really bored, you can go back bored. You can go back and read a history of newspapers and see who the big, movers and shakers and what they did. I mean, Hearst is notorious. Yeah. Like, for the guy who said, "You want a war? I'll give you a war."
Yeah.
I mean, that's how influential and powerful people who control the platforms where you get your information from. That's important. Yeah. That's a lot of damn power.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are. If you're going to be in a position to be that wealthy, to own that kind of media and that kind of reach, should be concerning to everybody.
Yeah.
If somebody's listening to this now and says, "Oh, Dennis just being a liberal hack again," it's like, no, again, it's not just Elon. It's the most liberal of liberal guys out there. If, George Soros was owning TikTok and X.
Yes, I think
I'd be uncomfortable.
Yes, that would be a problem.
And it shouldn't happen.
No.
We went through, it was a Republican president. Remember Teddy Roosevelt, who was known as the trust buster. And because he saw these entities as having too much power and, kind of perverting the free marketplace.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen anytime soon with these tech companies.
No. Now you have Bezos at the Washington Post.
Oh, boy.
Changing the motto from "Democracy dies in darkness" to what was it? It was a compelling storytelling for all America. And and in the slide they used to unveil their changes at the Post, they refer to the Post as an AI-fueled platform for news.
It's too bad.
Yeah, Washington Post used to be a great newspaper.
Yeah, I loved the Washington Post for a long, long time. Years ago, when I used to, when you still got subscriptions to newspapers,
Yeah.
I would get New York Times, and I would get the Arizona Republic, obviously, every day.
Yeah.
And then I used to get a weekly subscription because the Washington Post had this weekly. Like they would just package up their best stuff from the week in national politics, and and it was great. You'd read David Broder's column and all that kind of stuff, and then you saw under Barron. Marty Barron, his leadership, you saw them do some really good, hard-hitting journalism, investigative journalism.
Yeah.
And I'd be worried that maybe that kind of investigative journalism could be going away now if that's what they're turning at this point. Is that if that's what this means, that would be concerning. I've always thought that the Washington Post is one of the great institutions of the country.
Yeah.
Dating all the way back to the Watergate scandal.
Yeah. Now an AI-fueled platform for news.
Whatever the hell that means.
Yeah. Doesn't sound good. I don't think it's a positive.
Give me something positive. Let's end on a positive note. How can we end this pod on a positive note?
You're stumping me, man.
Stumping me.
All right, one of my favorite musicians who I've never seen live because he never, ever comes to Phoenix, and I've wanted to see him for years and years. Finally, I got tickets to see him. Bob Mould.
Yes, and I've got to get on that too. He's going to be playing out at Pappy's.
Pappy and Harriet's out in Pioneer Town, in the middle of the desert in California.
So
I was taking a road trip.
Yeah, what's the name of the song? The new record that's coming out?
Here We Go Crazy.
Do yourself a favor and you just go check it out on Spotify. There's a song available from that upcoming record.
Bob Mould is Here We Go Crazy.
Here We Go Crazy. And Bob Mould is a genuine, just alt rock underground indie treasure.
Yes.
If you're into that kind of thing, he's 65 years old now, I think.
Probably,
and he's still putting out just loud, angry, passionate music that's relevant.
Yes.
It's just really, really, the guy really is a treasure, man. There's a lot of his contemporaries haven't aged quite as well musically as he has.
This stuff still holds up beautifully.
Yeah.
He had an album a few years ago. I forget which album this came up, but it's a song called The Descent.
Oh, yes.
And I love it's a wonderful song. He played it. He went on Letterman, so this a few years ago, but played it for Letterman in the Ed Sullivan Theater, which has been there a while.
Mm-hmm.
And they're playing it, and dust starts raining down out of the rafters.
It's been up there since the Beatles.
Yes. Yeah, dust and debris is falling out of the rafters because that's sort of the musical style.
Yeah,
and it's great.
He is just wonderful. Again, I got to see him play in his band Sugar.
Yeah.
I've not seen Bob Mould solo.
Yeah.
For the reason he always avoids.
He's never here. They played. He started out in Husker Du.
Yeah.
They played here. Sugar played here.
Yeah.
Solo, he never does.
Nope.
But you head out to Pappy and Harriet and see him there in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, but if you're into that kind of thing, do yourself a favor. Let's check it out.
Yeah.
Again, not a lot of his contemporary. I can't think of a single one at the top of my head right now who's aged quite as well as him.
No, most of people of that era have sort of faded. The same city, same era, the replacements, like Paul Westerberg hasn't done anything in years. Yeah,
and it seems like they evolve and they change and they start doing some weird shit, and then they get older and they try to revert back to their roots, which seems
He's done a little of that.
A little bit of that, but it's
but it's been great.
Yeah, it's been great, but it also seems like it's continuing to evolve, and I am blown away every time.
Yeah.
I've heard his past two records. It's just been just amazing. I'm really looking forward to hearing the full effort on this
Drops
record.
around March 7th, I think. Drops in early March. Show it. The tour starts in April.
All right. I think we should end it there.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Hey, and on the positive note, at least for us right now, at this moment, we're signing off. It's freaking Friday, man.
It is.
We're almost there to the weekend.
Yep.
And go Lions and Bills. That's the Super Bowl I want to see.
Sure. I'd be down with that. I'd love to see the Lions make it.
Yeah. 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 That'd be great. And I think both fan bases deserve whatever, but the Lions a little bit more.
Yeah. They put up with a lot.
They put up with so much. And the town has been so just
It's been a rough half century.
It's been rough, man.
Yeah.
And Detroit's a good town with good people.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll end it there.
Yeah. See you next week.
All right.
Thanks for listening. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the Google Store, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. See you next time.